Kevin.
Thank you, Steve. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Kevin. Actually, I've been covering political media since the 80s because one of the first beats I had at Adweek was covering political media marketing, and I was covering the Tuesday team and Ronald Reagan's election and re-election back then. So it's really interesting to be here today. And I was going to start off by asking you to see if you could respond to kind of Patrick Stevenson's counter, point on the DNC. But I know you had a busy day this morning, and maybe that's a good place to jump in. You mentioned you were a little distracted by some of the news cycle. Can you talk a little bit about how you manage that?
We haven't really figured it out yet. I mean, we deal with the day-to-day, but the past couple weeks have obviously been crazy for everyone in this room. Impeachment has completely changed the game on both sides. I'm sure the DNC is seeing a surge of support, as well as the president's defenders with the RNC. So we try to take it day by day, hour by hour. We're trying to get ahead of the game. When votes are being scheduled, now we know-ish when the trial's starting. We don't know the format or anything, so we're still kind of flying by the seat of our pants there. But the president, we wake up, we see his Twitter, we know what the day is going to look like. So that kind of can blow up our day in a second. But that's great, because he is probably the best marketer in the business, on left or right. There's no one that can match the power that he has right now.
So it sounds to me then like that your campaign strategy has to be dynamic, fluid, spontaneous. Do you have a base campaign where you're going to be doing so many impressions against fundraising, so many per response? Does it change with the news cycle?
We have our evergreen content that we're always pushing out there via ads and email. This cycle, we are probably working much more closely than we were in 2016 of having cross-channel communication, all being the same thing, hammering them home on SMS, email, ad, the same message, which has been very helpful. I think the communication has just really picked up between all of the teams. So we have that going every day in the background, and then our team is ready, within an hour, we're out there responding to Speaker Pelosi or Senator Schumer, whatever they're saying. If they have a press conference, if the president tweets, again, we can easily take a screenshot of it and get a 3-sentence email out. The good thing is, RNC, the campaign approval is very quick. They understand the importance of digital. It is a digital-first operation. Obviously, Brad Parscale is the campaign manager. First time I think a digital person has ever run a presidential campaign. The RNC, Chairwoman McDaniel has invested historic amounts, tens of millions of dollars in digital prospecting. No other organization can do that. So it's just been great to have the support of the higher-ups, and knowing that they don't understand what we do, but they know we have to do it.
So describe the structure. So you have a joint agreement with the Trump-Pence re-election campaign. Are you a subsidiary of it? Are you a parallel universe? How does that work?
So I'm an RNC employee, but we have a joint fundraising committee that's been in place since 2016. The smartest thing the president did for us was announce his re-election on Inauguration Day, because the operation never stopped. We didn't wait 2 years to start fundraising again. We amassed a massive war chest. The RNC and Trump campaign just announced we have $200 million to start this new year. The DNC does not. So I work for the RNC, but because it's a joint fundraising agreement, majority of the fundraising goes through that. So both campaign and RNC staff work on it.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if you're going to have ulcers by the end of this, because as you mentioned with the news cycle, I think you said within 3 days you're going to have impeachment hearing, Iowa caucus, and the Super Bowl?
So we have the Super Bowl on the 2nd. Monday is Iowa, Tuesday is State of the Union. That's after end of month. So it's going to be a very long week. Our team's ready. We're kind of doing it as a mini fire drill for convention. We're trying out some rapid response stuff with State of the Union and everything around that. And we're going to, fail now, so we're not failing in August at the convention.
Okay. So in terms of the calendar, though, at this point in time, your main focus is on fundraising.
Yes, but, we use that for everything. Fundraising as a way to get supporters in, but in 6 months, it's going to completely switch to get out the vote. But we want to get the emails now. We want to get the cell phones now when it's cheaper. We've been running prospecting now for 3 years. we've more than doubled the size of the list since 2016, and we're going into this with 35 million contacts starting. So, I mean, you need about 60 million to vote for you, and we're already halfway there. So if we already have the email and cell phone numbers, it's going to be much easier for get out the vote.
Okay. Well, you mentioned cell phones and acquiring numbers. That was something that Patrick was talking about, was the shift to peer-to-peer type SMS targeting. And is that similar to what you've seen, the shift from email to SMS?
Yes, we haven't gotten to the inflection point yet of SMS surpassing email. And I always have to remind people that SMS is much more expensive than sending a blast email. You're talking fractions of a cent to send an email. You're talking, if you're doing peer-to-peer, you could be paying a dime in message. So again, the ROI there has to be factored in. But within an SMS, you have your blast file. So you want people to opt in. That's much cheaper. It's a lot faster to get out. But you do have your peer-to-peer. A lot of the get out the vote is going to have to happen through peer-to-peer. Election day, I would be shocked if we sent less than, all of political, less than 1 billion text messages. So, I mean, if you guys, I would get off this list now. You guys are in trouble.
Well, you're doing such an awesome job on fundraising. The ROI will pay for itself on that back end.
Yes.
What is the relationship? I mean, is there a yield curve? Do you see an actual higher ROI on the SMS relative to the cost?
Email still has a higher ROI.
Okay.
Much higher. But that's not to say that SMS does not have an extremely high ROI too. I mean, we're probably going to get $1 million text message soon. We're almost there, which is insane. Like, if you told me 2 years ago in 2017, after I saw all the success at 16, that SMS would be this important, I wouldn't have believed you.
So I think you mentioned in our prep that there was some recent disclosure of the Obama's 2012 campaign that showed that something like 80 to 90% of the money went into email.
Yeah, so OFA published all of their presentations recently, and I was looking through the fundraising one just to see what a snapshot was back then, because in 2012, on Romney, I wasn't doing fundraising. I was doing digital political, realized I hated it, so got over to fundraising. But they were saying that 90% of your money should be coming in from email. That's not the case anymore. So it's just funny that we're kind of going through the same thing we did when email just exploded onto the scene with Obama. We're just going through it with SMS now.
So what's the next stage of peer-to-peer? Are you getting into DM and WhatsApp and personal messaging platforms, or how are you cracking that code, so to speak?
So I don't know about the future of peer-to-peer. I don't know. We might blow it up by the end of this election with just how much we're going to send and how pissed people are going to be. So I don't know what the future there is. I'm hoping I don't have to really deal with it post-election. But no, we haven't really gone into those other apps. We've tried, we've tested a bunch, the Facebook messengers, all of that. And it's fine, but it's a time suck most of the time. So I'd rather our team focus on, I tell everyone, if it's not a six-figure idea, then it's probably not going to happen now. We need six-figure ideas. A trolley email that raises 10,000 and gets some Twitter activity, it's not what I need. So I'm trying to stick to the main channels.
Well, political's always been exempt from do not call lists and things like that. Do you think we could get such a backlash that we might kill a golden goose here, that there might actually be legislation?
I don't know. The only good thing we have going for us is it's very bipartisan. Dems are doing it too, so they don't want to blow it up either. So I think we might be able to work with them on that. And I know I'm not involved in anything, but I know some of the peer-to-peer companies are kind of forming an alliance, it seems. So that could be helpful to everyone.
So what, at this point, do you think might be the next bright, shiny thing? I mean, Steve asked Patrick about that, and we didn't get anything from him. So I know it's proprietary, but what do you think's the next thing we should at least start thinking about?
I don't know.
Earlier today on another panel, there was a discussion about gaming and esports and the rise there.
Yes.
That's, for Madison Avenue, that's still an untapped dimension.
Oh, and I've talked to multiple firms about it. A lot of them, I mean, the gaming community, we're gonna try stuff this cycle. People who do a lot of the potentially like the live gambling, like online gambling. Like that's not something I want to obviously get into, but it's something that they have a lot of people subscribing to, so there's potential there. But I don't know what's going to actually come to fruition this cycle.
Well, I think Las Vegas does have odds makers on political outcomes, and
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Might you create a game or a platform around that?
God, last thing we need is more apps. I don't know. I don't have plans for that now.
Okay. I guess we're too early for serious TV consideration, but are you looking at new ways to use TV when you get into the get out the vote stage of things, like geo-targeting and things like that?
Yes. We're in the early stages. The Trump campaign has bought some TV already, and they're digital first. Their TV ads say text Trump to 88022. So you're putting that in front of voters, and they're doing it. We're mirroring that on online advertising as well. But I don't know exactly the TV strategy or anything, obviously, but it's going to be heavy-handed with digital.
Okay, so you are coordinating in a very efficient way with the campaign. Going back to the news cycle, just describe for us like how it would actually work if you have a plan in place and the president tweets something and you have to react to it. Do you actually literally have to pull media spend or things like that?
No, it's usually not that drastic. The ads keep churning. We get programs approved, and then the ads team will have creative worked around that. The easiest thing we get out is a text message. The second easiest thing is an email, and then we switch over ads.
How do you avoid redundancy, making sure that each working dollar is being used between all sides? And you also have some local and state races that you need to be mindful of as well, right?
Mm-hmm. So we make sure, obviously, like all the contracts, it's very transparent what other people are paying. Thank you to the FEC. So we can actually use that and leverage that. We actually we're having a massive conversation with a large creative firm that we are paying the most to in all of the FEC, and they're trying to jack up the prices more. And we're not having that because they're not doing that to anyone on the left. So we get to use that to our advantage. In terms of making sure we're doing everything, I mean, we just have such a large amount of money that we're spending. We can negotiate such low rates that the other campaigns in the DNC frankly can't.
So we don't talk much about social in these enclaves anymore. Is social dead? I mean, are we?
No.
Okay.
I mean, can't be. The president's on Twitter.
Well, sure. So you have all the organic you need, right?
Yeah. So we don't put money behind it. Well, Twitter banned it, but we didn't put money behind it. We're actually raising a ton of money on organic social. It's kind of weird. We never really put the ask out. I mean, a ton of money in relative terms, but they've had 6-figure months on just organic social, which is crazy. And before the president, the GOP brand was not the best, wasn't the coolest. So it's good to see that. But no, not a ton on the organic side outside of what he's really pushing. And we just try to echo.
But aside from fundraising, can it be used to activate I mean, we saw a year ago you had things like Beto's dental hygiene going viral and AOC's dancing performances. We haven't really seen anything like that in a while.
Good. I don't want candidates to have access to TikTok or anything like that. God knows. So I'm happy that we're not seeing that.
Yeah. For backdoor implications alone.
Yes.
So in 2016, the political media strategy was Facebook. Not so much now then.
Oh, no, Facebook's still huge.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, Facebook, Google. Facebook just announced they're not really changing much, so.
That's right.
So they're still playing ball.
Right.
So we're working with them heavily still.
Okay, for paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, social, organic Facebook,
Right.
kind of useless.
Okay. What are you jealous that you see the Democrats doing now that you would like to do but can't because of the way you're structured or positioned?
Well, it's harder because campaigns can say certain things that the RNC cannot. And that's kind of a limitation because we can't directly advocate. So that's tough to see the campaigns being able to kind of trash us and not being able to defend as much as I would like to. Yeah, I'm really just jealous of like what a campaign can legally do. It's nice having the RNC because of the advantage with the money. And I know campaigns are usually cash strapped, especially all the Dems heading into Iowa, but they can say a lot more.
Well, we're going to turn over to questions in a minute, but I want to go back to the hierarchy. So we have a paid, owned, and earned marketplace in the general marketing world. It relates to the political media world as well, and I know a lot of what you're doing is paid. We discussed that, but there's also the owned aspect. We talked about the president's Twitter platform, but he also has a, I think there's still the Real News Updates, so there's still some owned media. But recently, MediaPost reported that Trump supporters were possibly going to buy the OANN network. Is it possible, you obviously have a strong correlation between Fox News, that we could see more of a coordinated effort between the RNC, the Trump campaign, and private media, so to speak?
Way above my pay grade. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, put it this way. When you look at your plans, do you calculate and factor for the value of the weight and the impressions coming from those outlets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We know where our supporters are. Drudge Report. We know where to go after them. I'm not going to go on MSNBC.
Right.
So, yeah, we know where we're going online to find our people, and we know where's working. And then if it's not working, we test basically with everyone via our ad partner. Gary Kobe is one of the smartest men on the right, or probably the left, in terms of digital strategy. So we work closely with him to make sure that we're doing the right things.
But do you calculate the impressions you're generating, not that you're generating, but that you're getting organically from those media outlets as part of what you need to?
Our comms team does. They will do a lot of that in monitoring it. Us, not so much. We'll sometimes get some stories written. We did the fake news awards in 2017. That got a lot of attention by the people we were trashing. But they linked to it, so thank you. Yeah, so we do sometimes work with them, but sometimes, we know there's a guy, Trump fundraising emails on Twitter. He takes a screenshot of every single thing we ever send and does an end-of-month recap. It's insane, but it's actually very helpful for me because I don't have to go do it now. So I just take his reports freely. And I'm like, oh, wow, you sent that many from Lara Trump? Great. But everything we do is creating attention, and we're not really monitoring that too much.
Okay, so there's one thing in the political media world that we don't see so much in the commercial media world, which is the role of outside influencers. So about 2 years ago, MediaPost gave one of our Agency of the Year awards to the Internet Research Agency because they devised such an amazing and ingenious campaign with low spending to influence the outcome of an election. We know that they're active now. We just had news reports this week. This is a delicate question, but I know you're not coordinating with them, but they're a factor out there. They're part of that organic marketplace that's impacting voters and fundraising and other things. Do you calculate that? Do you adjust for that? Do you plan around it? Can you detect it?
We try to get ahead of our surrogates. The president kind of brought a different coalition in 2016 in terms of endorsements and people working on his campaign. It wasn't, it didn't start with the congressmen or the senators endorsing him. It was conservative, pundits on Twitter, on Instagram, Diamond and Silk. So he's kind of brought this diverse coalition here that we've never really had access to as a party. So it's nice having those surrogates being brought in and having such a loud platform on social media to continue helping.
No, I mean specifically foreign actors. Yeah. Who are executing campaigns to influence the outcome of our election.
I'm not.
No, not coordinating. Do you calculate or plan or?
It's very hard to plan for. I don't know what they're doing. We have our net ops team tracking that.
Well, on that note, I'm wondering if there are any audience questions what the RNC strategy is and execution.
Kevin, following up on Patrick's point about they're working with the platforms over arguments about misinformation. So I'm curious about what your relationship with the platforms is about things like authenticating information and misinformation. What is this? Does this sort of become an arms race between parties with the platforms over who's playing the refs as to what qualifies as misinformation and not? What do these negotiations look like, and what's happening at the RNC in this regard?
I mean, we have our reps at all the platforms that we talk to that, they have the dedicated Republicans to talk to all of the committees in the campaigns. Facebook has said they're not going to be fact-checking, I believe. But we have our internal fact-check process anyways. We have our whole research department. We have a comms department. Nothing goes out until it is fact-checked. So we're not putting out we are using the numbers that we have, that everyone has, so we are like fact-checking ourselves.
Are you doing the same thing on your side of monitoring for misinformation from the left?
Yes. We're keeping track of a lot of paid advertising by media companies, opinion pieces that they're putting money behind that they don't have to disclose. There's no ad library like that, like there is for political ads. We don't like that. I mean, they get to get away with it too. So opinion pieces are not fact-checked all the time. So we sometimes will flag that, but again, it's probably not going to change that much.
Becky?
Hey, Kevin. My name's Ann Madej from a company called Kinetics. I am really just curious. You spoke about the Drudge Report.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work directly with like the Drudge people? Can you influence what articles are that they show like sequentially? Will you like reach out to them and be like, hey, hyperlink this article, this article, this article? Like what's your?
I do not know. We don't. That is a comms thing. If they're trying to help push pieces. We don't from our side, the digital side, no.
So on the digital side, how do you work? Like, what do you mean when you said you'll go to like the Drudge Report and not like MSNBC?
Ads, like placing our digital ads.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Kevin, 2 years ago, Garrett Lansing was here,
yes,
describing how they operated, and Facebook in particular, the ways in which they used micro-targeting. They set up teams of rivals, media buying tables that competed with each other internally for budget every morning. They were pumping hundreds of thousands of dollars daily into Facebook, using real-time iterations of media creative iterations, so that they were doing sometimes tens of thousands of versions in a day. Are you set up to do that again? Is that same level of micro-targeting going to be a part of this election? And who and to what end will you be doing the targeting?
Yes, we are set up for that. We are scaling our ads team probably more than we did in 2016, actually. And it's not only that, we are going to be micro-targeting on peer-to-peer. The RNC's data operation allows us to really hone in on voters, how they want to be targeted, but we can hit them with the ad and an SMS follow-up. And we were seeing in special elections, peer-to-peer, you could have a 50% turnout but just by getting them, a 50% increase just by getting them to peer-to-peer. So we can pull universes very granularly, not just for ads now, because we have so much data that we've been collecting.
So you can actually take some of those disciplines that you learned on Facebook and some of that micro-targeting, you can actually now apply it to peer-to-peer and see similar effect.
Yes.
Obviously you come into the election with the tremendous incumbent advantage,
yes,
but you also come in with the disadvantage of having an incumbent who has so far at least a 42% approval ceiling. Who are you targeting to persuade, and what channels are you using to persuade that 6-7% that you're going to need?
Right. I mean, now I sound like tinfoil hat and like fake news guy, but in 2016 the polls were against the president too. So I don't know if people are still actively saying like, yeah, I do actually support the president now. So I think his support is much higher than it probably is shown in polling. And in terms of persuasion, we haven't really gotten there yet. We haven't really switched to that phase yet. The campaign is doing their own thing on that. But we are just going after, I mean, we're using some really unique programs to try to get new people in. The president signed an animal cruelty bill, making it a felony. We are now targeting people who, you know, would probably not would not be a Republican, but we're showing them ads and getting them to sign up to stand with President Trump and say animal cruelty is a felony now. And we're pulling in all of these new emails that he's been running since 2015, and we're still finding hundreds of thousands of new emails every month. So I think that his policies are kind of attracting a couple more things, and if we can target those people online, which we are, we can actually get them into the fold.
Wow, so you're going to get the PETA crowd. That's amazing.
We haven't gotten the PETA crowd.
Okay. Well, so when we host this conference in January of 2021, what do you think we'll be talking about as a closing note?
Congratulating me on a great victory. No. I think we're going to be talking about, did we end up blowing up the peer-to-peer universe in the world? Like, is that completely shut down now? Is the FEC going to start monitoring a lot more? We're going to see, we're going to see the ad strategy, but I still think it's not the sexiest topic, but email is still going to be dominant and still going to need to be looked at. And I think the RNC is in a very good place with that. So,
What issue that's occupying us now that seems to be high in everyone's mind is going to prove to have been overrated?
like platforms banning ads. I think it's, or like changing like what they're doing. I think it's a lot to do about nothing. Like Twitter banning. I don't know how many Republicans were actually spending on Twitter at scale, and Google changing some of their ways that they're targeting. I don't think it's going to. I mean, it's not great, but I think it can be solved.
So you're sort of in agreement with Patrick that they're sort of aiming in the wrong direction. They're not going to solve anything by what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. On
Yeah,
that note,
Joe,
I want to thank you, Kevin, and hopefully
Thank
you'll
you.
come back in 2021
Hopefully
and
I'm
give us the
employed.
postmortem. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Kevin, thank